I returned a surprise from the work trip, and my wife was not there. Neighbors said she went too. 58 years old, retired civil engineer. I built my life brick by brick. Exactly like the projects I designed over 3 decades, my marriage seemed like a solid structure, unshakable. But foundations can be undermined without us noticing, and the silent erosion is always the most dangerous. My last consulting trip in Portland had been planned months in advance. $1-million contracts do not close overnight. 45 years of career taught me that precision is everything, in work and personal life. Each detail counts. Each inch matters. Each connection can mean the difference between success and total collapse. Susan and I built a seemingly perfect life, married for 30 years without children, but with enviable assets. Our last property in Phoenix, an architectural project I designed personally, was a testament to decades of meticulous planning. Every wall, every foundation, every detail calculated with the precision of an engineer who understands that the smallest flaw can compromise the whole structure. When I landed at the Chicago airport, something was different. My cell phone, usually full of affectionate messages from Susan, was strangely silent. First thought, signal problem. Second thought, something was not right. In the engineering world, silence rarely means peace, usually indicates an imminent failure. The taxi traveled the familiar streets of the suburb. My house seemed intact, but the silence was deafening. The curtains slightly displaced, a ceramic vase slightly out of place, details that only a professional like me would notice. Like in a construction project, the first signs of compromise are almost imperceptible to inattentive eyes. It was then that Robert, my retired ex-cop neighbor, approached me. His look was strange, a mix of pity and hesitation. "Thomas," he said, his voice loaded with a weight that anticipated the blow. "Your wife. She left with someone." Words that destroy structures more solid than reinforced concrete. In 30 seconds, decades of construction crumbled. The investigations that followed were as meticulous as my engineering projects. I discovered that Susan not only had left me, but took half of our investments. A project of betrayal meticulously architected, with the precision of a malicious construction plan. Carlos Mendez, my old office partner, was behind everything. 30 years of professional friendship, shared projects, business lunches, everything revealed itself an elaborate theater of betrayal. He not only seduced Susan, but meticulously planned our financial ruin. My training as an engineer taught me a crucial lesson. No structure is truly impenetrable. There are always weak points. There is always a strategy to dismantle what seems solid. And I was about to apply that lesson in the most ruthless way possible. It would not be revenge. It would be justice built with the same precision with which I designed each of my buildings. Each movement calculated, each evidence documented, each step strategically planned to expose the true nature of Carlos and Susan. The betrayal has its own foundations, and I was about to demolish each one of them. The first days after the discovery were a whirlwind of calculated emotions. I would not allow myself the luxury of an emotional collapse, just as I would not allow failures in my engineering projects. Each movement would be strategic. Each action would be planned with the precision of a structural project. My first step was to document everything. Lawyers, private investigators, bank statements, each document would be a piece in my reconstruction plan. Susan and Carlos believed they had destroyed me, but they did not understand the mindset of an engineer. Destruction is just the first step to a stronger reconstruction. The evidence was irrefutable. Suspicious bank transfers, compromising emails, meetings set in luxury hotels in Phoenix. Each detail revealed a meticulous scheme of financial and personal betrayal. They not only destroyed our marriage, but tried to erase me completely from my own life. Carlos, my old partner, knew every detail of my professional life. He knew about my investments, about my business strategies. He used that knowledge not as a friend, but as a calculating predator. 30 years of professional friendship reduced to a plan of betrayal. Susan, for her part, was not the wife I believed I knew. I discovered that she had started transferring funds months before, preparing her financial escape. Every penny moved was like a blow to a structure I believed to be solid. But structures can be rebuilt, and I was about to prove that. My action plan would be as meticulous as any engineering project I ever designed. It would not be an impulsive revenge, but a strategic reconstruction of the truth. Each movement would be calculated to expose not only the personal betrayal, but the financial scheme that Carlos and Susan architected. The next months would be my masterpiece, a construction of justice, brick by brick, evidence by evidence. They believed they had destroyed me, but they were about to discover that a true engineer always finds a solution, always rebuilds, always prevails. The true extent of the betrayal would only reveal itself with time. It was not just a case of infidelity, but a plan meticulously elaborated to destroy me financially. Each detail had been calculated with the coldness of an engineering project, each movement thought to leave me vulnerable and isolated. My engineering career taught me that no structure falls by chance. There is always a failure point, a moment of fragility that can be explored. Susan and Carlos believed they had found my weakest point, my trust. But they underestimated my capacity for reconstruction. The first steps were silent. While they celebrated their escape, I was collecting every fragment of evidence. My law firm, specialized in corporate fraud cases, started to mount a solid case. It would not be just a legal battle, but a systematic demolition of their lies. I discovered that Carlos had been manipulating contracts for my office for years. Small alteration, subtle deviations that went unnoticed in a first analysis. Like an engineer who examines the foundations of a building, I began to unravel every layer of his fraud. Susan was not just an innocent victim. She was an active partner in this plan. The bank transfers, the secret meetings, the meticulous preparation of her escape, everything indicated a long-term plan to completely destabilize me. But what they did not know was that my background in engineering gave me something far beyond technical skills. It taught me resilience, strategic planning, and the ability to rebuild what seems irretrievably destroyed. Each construction project has its challenges. Each structure has its points of fragility. And I was about to transform my greatest personal betrayal into my most impressive reconstruction project. Each day that passed was an additional layer of strategy. My plan would not be just a response to the betrayal, but a complete reconstruction of my life and reputation. Like an architect who redesigns a damaged building, I was about to redesign my existence. The investigations revealed increasingly deeper details of the conspiracy. Carlos not only had betrayed me professionally, but had been manipulating contracts and investments for years. Small deviations, subtle adjustments that went unnoticed in a first analysis. Like an engineer who examines the foundations of a compromised building, I began to unravel every layer of his fraud. I discovered that Susan and Carlos had planned everything meticulously. Bank transfers carefully masked, secret meetings in hotels in different states, a web of lies as complex as a malicious structural project. They not only wanted to leave me, but to completely destroy everything I had built. My law firm, specialized in corporate fraud cases, started to mount a case that would be like a controlled implosion of lies. Each document, each email, each bank record would be a charge strategically positioned to collapse the elaborate theater of betrayal that Susan and Carlos had built. The irony did not escape me. I, an engineer who spent decades designing safe structures, had been betrayed by the person I trusted most. Susan was not only my wife, but my life partner, someone with whom I had shared every success, every professional challenge. The details of the betrayal were like floor plans of a wicked project. Carlos had used our years of professional friendship, our shared projects, to create a plan that would leave me completely vulnerable. Slow and calculated transfers of funds, manipulation of contracts, seduction of my own wife, all part of a broader plan. But what they did not understand was the mindset of an engineer. For us, no structure is truly unrecoverable. There is always a method of reconstruction, always a strategy to raise again what seems irretrievably destroyed. My next movement would be more than a simple legal response. It would be a complete reconstruction, a demonstration that true strength is not in keeping intact, but in knowing how to rebuild after destruction. Susan and Carlos believed they had destroyed me. They were about to discover the true meaning of personal engineering. The life of an engineer is made of precision, of millimeter calculations, of structures that defy gravity and time. But no calculation, no project can predict the fragility of human relationships. 30 years of marriage, 3 decades of a shared life, reduced to rubble in a single moment of revelation. My name is Thomas Reynolds, 58 years old, retired civil engineer, with a history of projects that transformed the skyline of American cities. Phoenix, Chicago, Portland, each city carries a fragment of my professional history. I built skyscrapers that defied conventional engineering, designed bridges that seemed impossible, and always believed that the same precision could be applied to personal life. What a naive mistake. Betrayal is not like a construction project that you can predict and calculate. It is a silent earthquake that corrodes the foundations without you noticing. Susan and Carlos had been the architects of my own destruction, and I was about to become the engineer of my reconstruction. Everything started subtly. Small details that went unnoticed, like microcracks in a seemingly solid structure. Phone calls at strange hours, business meetings more frequent, unexplained absences. My training taught me to observe what others do not see, and something definitely was not correct. My last consulting trip for a project in Portland had been planned months in advance, an urban renewal contract that could completely transform the city center. Projects like this were my passion, my reason for existing after retirement. It was not just work. It was a mission to redesign spaces, to create environments that would transform people's lives. When I landed at the Chicago airport, something was already different. The silence of my cell phone was deafening. Susan, who always sent me affectionate messages, was strangely absent. First, I thought of signal problems, then some emergency. The truth would be much more cruel than any emergency I could imagine. Robert, my retired neighbor and ex-cop, was the one who gave me the first blow of reality. His look was of one who carries a weight difficult to share. "Thomas," he said, his voice loaded with hesitation, "your wife. She is no longer at home. She left with someone." Words that destroy structures more solid than any earthquake. The investigations that followed were as meticulous as my engineering projects. Each document, each record, each fragment of information would be a piece in my puzzle of the truth. Susan and Carlos not only had plotted my personal ruin, but planned a complete financial demolition. Carlos Mendez, my office partner for 30 years, had transformed our professional friendship into an elaborate plan of betrayal. He knew every detail of my life, every investment, every business strategy. He used that knowledge not as a friend, but as a calculating predator who identifies the weakest point of a structure. The evidence was irrefutable and meticulous. Suspicious bank transfers, compromising emails, meetings set in luxury hotels in different states. Each detail revealed a scheme as complex as a malicious architectural project. They not only wanted to leave me, but completely erase my existence. Susan was not the wife I believed I knew. I discovered that she had started transferring funds months before, preparing her financial escape with a precision that reminded me of my own planning methods. Every penny moved was like a blow to a structure I believed to be unshakable. But what they did not understand was the mindset of a true engineer. Destruction is just the first step to a stronger reconstruction. Each recovery project begins with the precise analysis of the damage, and I was about to do exactly that. My law firm, specialized in corporate fraud cases, started to mount a case that would be like a controlled implosion of lies. Each document would be a charge strategically positioned to collapse the elaborate theater of betrayal that Susan and Carlos had built. The irony did not escape me. I, a professional who spent decades designing safe structures, had been betrayed by the person I trusted most. Susan was not only my wife, but my life partner, someone with whom I had shared every success, every professional challenge. In the next months, I would transform my greatest personal betrayal into my most impressive reconstruction project. It would not be revenge. It would be justice. A justice built with the same precision with which I designed each of my buildings. They believed they had destroyed me. They were about to discover the true meaning of resilience. The battle was just beginning, and I was ready to rebuild not only my life, but expose the truth in every minimal detail. The world of engineering taught me that each structure has its own language, its own points of fragility. Just as a building can look solid on the outside, but have its foundations compromised, my marriage had been exactly that, a perfect facade hiding deep cracks. I began to rebuild my personal narrative as I would with a complex restoration project. Each evidence would be a construction material, each document a tool of precision. It would not be just a legal battle, but a complete reconstruction of my identity and dignity. The investigations revealed deeper layers of the betrayal. Carlos not only had seduced Susan, but had been manipulating our joint businesses for years. Small deviations in contracts, subtle adjustments in investments, everything carefully planned to leave me vulnerable. My background in civil engineering always taught me to see beyond what was visible, to identify stress points in a structure, predict failures before they become catastrophic. Now I would apply that same methodology to my personal life. The bank transfers revealed a meticulous plan. Susan had prepared her financial escape with the precision of an engineering project. Accounts in different states, investments carefully distributed, a financial safety net built in the shadows of our marriage. Each discovery was like unraveling the layers of a complex structural project. One day, I found a set of emails that revealed secret meetings in hotels in different cities: Phoenix, Chicago, Portland. The same cities where I had built my most important projects, ironically, were the stages of their betrayal. Carlos had used our professional friendship as a tool of manipulation. 30 years of partnership transformed into an elaborate plan of destruction. He knew every detail of my investments, every business strategy, every professional contact. I began to mount my counterattack with the same precision with which I designed a bridge. Each movement would be calculated. Each evidence would be a piece strategically positioned. It would not be an emotional revenge, but a systematic reconstruction of the truth. My law firm, specialized in corporate fraud cases, became my new construction site. Lawyers, private investigators, financial experts. I assembled a team as diverse and specialized as the teams I formed for my most complex construction projects. The battle would be fought on multiple fronts: judicial, financial, personal. Each area would be treated with the same methodology that I applied in my engineering projects: precise analysis, strategic planning, meticulous execution. Susan and Carlos believed they had destroyed me completely. Little did they know that I was about to transform my greatest personal betrayal into my most impressive reconstruction project. True engineering, I learned, is not just about building physical structures, but about rebuilding lives, about transforming moments of destruction into opportunities for resignification. My story was just beginning. The days following the discovery were a test of endurance. I would not be a man broken by betrayal, but someone who would transform that experience into fuel for his reconstruction. Each morning I woke up with a clarity that only years of experience in engineering can provide. Complex problems have systematic solutions. My support network, although initially limited, began to expand. Old colleagues from the profession, clients of decades, professionals who had worked with me on transformative projects, each one became an important piece in my reconstruction process. Robert, my retired neighbor, was an unexpected source of strength. Ex-cop with years of experience in investigations, he helped me unravel details that initially would go unnoticed. Together, we began to assemble a complete picture of the betrayal. The investigations revealed increasingly deeper layers of the conspiracy. Susan was not just an innocent victim seduced by Carlos, but an active participant in a plan meticulously architected to destroy me financially and emotionally. I discovered bank transfers that dated from months before my last trip. Accounts in different states, investments carefully distributed, a financial safety net built in the shadows of our marriage. Each movement was like a reverse engineering project, dismantling the structure of our joint life. The emails I found were more than simple communications. They were detailed projects of how they would replace me in business, how they would divide my investments, how they would make me completely irrelevant. The coldness of the planning was impressive and familiar. It was exactly the type of precision that I used in my own engineering projects. Carlos had transformed our professional friendship into a weapon of destruction. He knew every detail of my life, every contact, every business strategy. 30 years of partnership reduced to an elaborate plan of betrayal. I began to understand that my response could not be simply legal or financial. It needed to be a complete reconstruction of my identity, of my personal narrative. It would be more than a legal battle. It would be a reaffirmation of my own existence. My law firm became my new construction site. Lawyers specialized in corporate frauds, private investigators, financial experts. I assembled a team as diverse and strategic as the teams I formed for my most complex construction projects. The battle would be fought on multiple fronts: judicial, financial, personal. Each area would be treated with the same methodology that I applied in my engineering projects: precise analysis, strategic planning, meticulous execution. It would not be a search for revenge, but for justice. A justice built with the same precision with which I designed each of my buildings over decades of career. Susan and Carlos believed they had destroyed me completely. Little did they know that I was about to transform my greatest personal betrayal into my most impressive reconstruction project. True engineering, I learned, is not just about building physical structures, but about rebuilding lives, about transforming moments of destruction into opportunities for resignification. My story was just beginning, and it would be a story of reconstruction, of resilience, of triumph over betrayal.